Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Amy Novotny. And she's got a background in breathing and pain specialist. And she's also leveraged that into speaking and writing books. She's got a background in physical therapy, but she does a lot more. And she helps clients alleviate pain, stress, all of the modern chronic ailments using a variety of techniques, which we'll talk about. And I'm really happy to welcome Amy to the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here and excited to share and help your audience.
Yeah, I know we had connected through Podmatch, and so kind of set the stage, really briefly talk about what you do, how you got there, and how you can help the audience.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit of a story, but I started off, I got a doctorate in physical therapy. I did that for a few years. And at the same time, I was starting to run marathons. And I wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And I was introduced to another way of thinking about asymmetries in the body and incorporating breathing with it. And so I just took the information, I started experimenting on myself, and I realized I could run 8 miles on a treadmill in 55 minutes pain-free. And I stopped stretching, foam rolling, scraping. I stopped doing all the things I used to tell other people to do. I just stopped doing it. And so I started just implementing this. And as I implemented it, I could run marathons pain-free. I flew through the qualifying marks for Boston, got into Boston 4 times, and then I was off doing something else. I'll explain in a second. But I could run pain free. And if I got pain in the middle of a race, I could get rid of it very, very quickly, like within a few minutes. So I started putting it into a process, and I realized that I was addressing that fight or flight nervous system, and I was learning how to calm myself down to release tension in my body so my bones normalize their position and I stopped having impingement of tissues. And so I started putting it into a process, and that's when I left physical therapy and started going into this method that I now call the PABR method. It stands for pain awareness breathing relief. And I started doing that, and I started becoming known for helping people out of major orthopedic surgeries, especially joint replacements. And so then I'll kind of speed it up a little bit, but I got a gentleman from Florida flew to Arizona to see me because he was scheduled for a knee replacement and he didn't want to have one. So I helped him and he got out of pain that he's had for 40 or 50 years. And so he hired me to travel around the world with him to coach him in this process for 6 months, which took me to Antarctica, which is the penguins behind me if this is on video. I took those photos, and then all the way to the Arctic. When I was done, I decided to start my own practice. And that ended up, I went on some real estate investment events with the real estate guys. I met Robert Kiyosaki, who asked me to help him. I helped him, so he called me his body healer. And that's how it ended me here. And now I speak around, I work with clients around the world on Zoom. And that's where I'm at. So a
Yeah.
little bit whirlwind.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I did a experiment a couple years ago where I did 3 months of yoga and it was and basically you know and just kind of tried this like juicing, and it was like really, when I didn't run, but of course my cardiovascular endurance suffered, but it was like the miracle on the body and just kind of using the breath. So talk about breathing and pain relief. And how does that work? And like, if you want to run but you've got these like kind of like kinks in your back or muscle stiffness, how do you address those?
Right. So when when you are breathing, how you breathe makes a difference. So yoga is great, breath work is great, but a lot of times it doesn't cover the mechanics of how you breathe. And that's where what I do with people is unique, and it kind of takes them to that next level is we work on changing how your rib cage is interacting with your diaphragm. So it stimulates the vagus nerve to calm you down. And what happens then is when your exhalation works with your ribs so that your belly spills out as you exhale, your body releases abnormal muscle tension that's caused by stress. whether that's physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, and intellectual stress. What happens is any stressor you have, whatever type, causes muscles to contract in your body, sometimes with your awareness, but often without your awareness. It starts to pull bones and joints out of position. And so if we can get those muscles to release their abnormal hold on your bones and joints, the bones go back into position, you no longer have impingement, you stop having pain, which is how you can get people with arthritis out of pain and they don't have to have surgery. So how you breathe makes a difference. So if you breathe and you blow out and suck your gut up and in, you actually lock yourself up. And so it's going to keep that pattern of guarding and locked joints. But if you blow out and you let your belly spill out and your rib cage can drop down where it should be, that helps the nervous system calm down and it releases that abnormal tension on your body so you can get rid of that pain.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So basically this belly breathing and just basically so n never so how does this um basically how does this work? Does this work if if you're young? Because it sounds like if you're young, your body's able to heal faster. But if you're like mid age or older and you want to run marathons, like does this change? Some people believe that pain is synonymous with aging, and why is that a false idea?
So, in my experience working with people, it's not age that determines your pain. It's how many stressors you have and how you've handled the stresses and how they've added up over time. Because out there in the world, there are many people that are super peaceful and they can get in all these contortions and have no pain and they might be 75 years old. But then you have a 9-year-old who's in pain, or a 20-year-old that has been diagnosed with arthritis and they think they have to live with pain for the rest of their life. And I say, no, it's how your stresses have added up and have you released the stress every day. So if you take every night where you release the abnormal changes in your muscles and joints related to stress, and you go to bed where you've released all that, one, you sleep better, but two, it's like you're starting over a new day. So I can work with someone who's in their 30s, who's had a horribly stressful life, a lot of trauma, they're just ramped up, and it could take them longer to release than someone who's 70 years old, who's had even more stresses, but has worked on releasing them and changes quickly. So that's why I say it doesn't matter your age, in my experience, because if we can get you to release your body and that abnormal grip and hold on your body just goes back into a normal position and you're fine and you can do whatever you need to do for your life, whatever fun you want to have.
Yeah, interesting. And so a follow-up question on that is like, for example, a lot of people are like the runners, or they're on their like smartphones a lot, or they're on their laptops and they have this curvature, and a lot of that can't be. I know you talked about the release, but a lot of that has to have like manual manipulation, like massage or something. Some people go to chiropractors to get those adjustments. So these techniques, do they in lieu, or is it in conjunction with, or can they replace like manual manipulation? Kind of elucidate that for us.
Yeah. So it can replace manual manipulation. It really can. But I know a lot of people want results faster. So a lot of times they'll do maybe the manual manipulation and then do this stuff at the same time. So what is done to them doesn't fall back out, because a lot of that manual manipulation is external. And what I'm teaching is how to change your body internally. So you can change yourself internally and not need manipulation. I haven't had a chiropractic adjustment ever. Someone has maybe played on me, but that was 15 years ago, maybe. And I can't even remember the last time I had a massage, maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And but I can release anything I need to release in my body because I know how to get it to release and I can feel it let go. But if someone's in a lot of pain, I'm not going to tell them don't get that, especially if it feels good. And then as long as we're working so that they can hold what was done to them, perfect. good teamwork. I'm all for it.
Yeah, interesting. Because you mentioned when you can release. So how do people know? Because for example, when I did that 3 months of yoga, I didn't need to have to go to massage therapy, and like my posture was really good. But then like as a runner, you have a lot of aches and so how do you know you release? And then also when you say you body stores up a lot of trauma. Is that like specific to runners, or is that physical trauma, or is that like emotional trauma? How are emotions stored in the body?
Okay, let me go back to your first question. You had a lot of questions in there. Um, so related to like running, you kind of mentioned a lot runners have a lot of aches in that.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And I say that because I've run over 40 some marathons and 10 ultra marathons up to 102 miles. So we want to get you where you don't feel that and you don't feel the aches and pains. Sometimes now, if you go run a marathon, your muscles might be a little bit sore, but we can we can get you to release it so you don't feel the soreness.
Yeah.
And so you are truly feeling it. So right now, Chris, your left shoulder is slightly higher than your right. And so I know that the upper trap muscle is on a little bit and probably your pecs as well. So I can have you go into a position and get you to feel certain muscles active. So you feel the muscles, the upper trap just let go. So a lot of times we think we need to push on it and push on those shoulders to let go, but you can actually blow out, focus on a part of your body to get it to stabilize, like your triceps, and then all of a sudden your upper trap just releases and you feel your shoulder drop. Like that's the type of release I'm talking about. And you can feel it. I'm not touching them, I'm not making it up, and you can visually see it. So if I'm doing this on you, I would record it. So you could feel it happen without you doing anything like physically to it. And then you can actually see it on the recording. So you know I'm not just making stuff up. And this is important to now tie up to your other question about emotions. I'm talking about any type of trauma, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse,
Mhm,
even spiritual abuse, some people experience. So, all the different types of abuses,
mhm, mhm.
whatever your body needs to do to help you get through that traumatic experience,
Yeah.
those muscles learn a pattern of holding you. And it's like the muscles get stored in that pattern. So a lot of times, like in the armpits and maybe in the top of the breastbone, there's a lot of anger or fear that gets stored there. So if we're working to get you to relax your armpits, your pecs, or to relax your breastbone or sternum down and in, you might have a memory that comes up related to that trauma. And so it can be a trigger. So what we have to do at the same time is as we're getting you to release certain areas, we have to stabilize you. So give you a new pattern of using your body that feels safe and stable and that calms you down at the same time. So that the muscles that ramp you up and guard you are not your dominant way of existence.
Mm,
And then people who do have some type of trauma, they're typically doing some type of psychological work as well, or therapy work or counseling.
mhm.
So you add these two pieces together and it helps them release and then stay out of the pattern that took them there in the first place.
Interesting. It's really interesting, these patterns of holding your body and kind of the different emotions that get trapped in that. It's fascinating.
Mm.
Another follow-up question I have for you is one thing is talking about most joint pain is blamed on arthritis, but that's not accurate in so kind of talk about that.
Sure. So if we think of the term arthritis, so it's a degeneration of your cartilage. So on the surface, just in case people aren't familiar with it, I'll just briefly talk about it. So if you bring two bones together, you have a joint, and then on the surface of those joints is cartilage that helps you glide and move around. So it's a degeneration of that cartilage. When someone has a pain in the joint, I'll just say my thumb, for instance, I typically go to a doctor, a physician, and they do an x-ray and they may see some degeneration. They say, okay, that joint pain is arthritis. I say, no, no. I've done this with so many people. I say the pain is the joint is not exactly in the position it needs to be, and the muscles are not pulling on the bones correctly. and I've done this with hundreds of people, where you get the muscles that are crossing that joint or affecting that joint to relax. And then all of a sudden that joint starts to move the way it was designed to move. The pain goes away. And I had a psychologist, friend, she's a friend and as well as a client. She worked with people for many years as a psychologist and as a psychological nurse as well. And she had knee pain. She was bone on bone. She had been getting injections for years, doing anti-inflammatories for years. And she wouldn't even let anyone touch her knee. And we started working on getting her rib cage in that correct position to fix her breathing mechanics. And her back relaxed and her knee pain went away. And she was 75 years old. And she returned to traveling around the world photographing wildlife. And this was in 2016 and hasn't had to have injections or medication since then. And she's bone on bone. The arthritis did not go away. It's still there. So her pain wasn't really the arthritis. It was how she was using her body. And once she fixed it, let her loose. She was all over the place, traveling literally all over the world to every pole.
Yeah, interesting. So, and then you mentioned one client success stories. What other success stories have you seen with the clients? Because really interesting these concepts that you talked about, like with alignment and posture, and kind of the way the muscles are interacting, and that's based on like your habits and
Yeah.
what people listening to this, they're like, oh, I want to try it out. What success stories do you have?
Let me give you another one because this goes very along with what you're just talking about. So, this also, I'm giving you stories from a while ago because then this works for longevity, not just like someone I just worked with. So this lady, she is a news anchor and used to be in on the news in Arizona. And we know the posture that is really encouraged in the news or the military, and what we're taught is shoulders back, suck up the gut, and be nice, rigid, tall, basically a straight line. So she was referred to me by a very well known neurologist, and she had numbness down the arm, couldn't use her arm. And she was waiting for neck surgery where they were going to splice her open in the front and then decompress, excuse me, decompress her neck and replace some things. And she was referred to me and I said, "What is your goal?" And she said, "It's September. My surgery is not until December. I need to survive until then." And I said, "Well, is one of your goals not to have surgery?" And she said, "No. If they can get me in sooner, I'm doing surgery sooner." And I said, "What if it could be a goal that it's not surgery?" And she's like, "That's just not a possibility." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I still need you to do exactly what I ask you to do as best to your ability as possible." And she was traveling to DC because she's involved in a lot of things. And so I started her on this process, and she didn't do the work at first. So for the first 2 weeks, she felt the effect when she was working with me, but then didn't practice it. And she came back and told me that. I said, "Please, please do the work. Just please, just humor me. I don't like to see anyone in pain, and I don't like to see people have surgeries if they don't need it. I get that surgery is important, but if you don't need it, let's not do it." So she started doing a little bit, and she started feeling effects, and she's like, "Hmm." And so she started doing more. Of course, once you start doing something that feels better, you do it more and more and more. And within a month and a half to 2 months, she canceled her surgery. And that was in 2017. And she had to learn get out of that posture that we're all taught to be in. So we don't want to be shoulders back, stick up your chest, suck up your gut, flare up the lower ribs, because that locks up the body and causes compression and affects the nerves going down our arms and legs. So what we want instead is a rib cage that's neutral. So if you imagine a rib cage is like a cylinder is most stable on its flat base. If you tilt it back or tilt it up, it becomes unstable, so things have to guard. So our rib cage is a cylinder. You don't want to tilt back too far, just like you don't want to hunch over too far. You just want to be in the center so that your ribs can drop down to calm you down because it affects your breathing, but also your shoulders drop down, your back stops overworking, you feel your legs, you feel your arms, you stay flexible and mobile like you were when you were a kid.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How can people contact you and follow you on see your work and work with you?
Sure. So easiest way is go to the website. It's pabrinstitute.com, PABR Institute.com, stands for Pain Awareness Breathing Relief. You can go there. It has links to social media. I'm on all the social media under Dr. Amy Novotny. And so you can also reach out to me on the website. You can set up a free consultation. However I can help you, I am here for you.
Yeah, I love that. And for all the audience, let's thank Amy for coming on and describing these concepts and give her a like and follow on socials, reach out to her. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.